Day, another Wednesday, and we are back. We are back. We are back. We're 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 back. Okay, good, good, good. We have some headroom. We have everything. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today.
Oh my goodness, this is actually so amazing. All the networks are working and they're just, everyone is live. We're good. We're so excited to be here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Super excited to be on here with you guys. It's going to be an amazing evening. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. So tonight we're talking about a very important topic. But before we get started, definitely reminding you guys where you're at. So Wednesday, every other Wednesday, we come to you live, co-hosting this show called Building Community Wealth. And one of the areas that we definitely dive into is our relationships and how that helps us to foster this growth. So tonight we're talking about what men bring to the table when it comes to finances, when it comes to building community wealth. How do men help us? I mean, Nancy, we just celebrated Father's Day. So I think it's perfect timing for us to talk about what men bring to the table when it comes to this whole issue. And I know that you guys might be expecting something else, but I promise you it's not going to be what you expect. We're going to have this conversation from a very objective standpoint. A lot of our references will be drawn from what God has spoken about, how we need to approach these roles. So don't worry, we're going to be bringing the women to the hot seat as well. But today it's all about the men. Welcome, Nancy. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. You are on vacation. I can see that you're enjoying yourself. How is California treating you?
California is treating me super good. I am happy. I am feeling amazing. Such an awesome experience being in a different state, having a different time zone. The weather is cooler over here, so I'm loving it.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear. Good to know. Good to hear. Good to know. All right, let's jump in. So, what are your thoughts? This topic is definitely one that always brings in the fireworks when you talk about the table, this whole table conversation. What do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? I'm like, okay, it's about time that somebody starts to have this conversation from more of a very objective, sensible standpoint, as
Mhm.
opposed to expectations. For men and women, we have created certain expectations of ourselves. So now when people come into a relationship or they come into a stage of dating and we meet people, the first thing is, what do you bring to the table? In fact, how did we get to the point in dating, relationships, family building, community building, where a man is asking a woman what she brings to the table, a woman is asking a man what he brings to the table?
I mean, it's just expectations. And of course, traditionally, some of us have been raised knowing we have different roles that we all play in a family setting.
Mm-hmm.
And for right now, in the era that we are in, I think it's okay for everybody to define what the table is, to define what role the other party plays on that table. And not everything will fit everyone. Every family is not going to be the same as the other family. So whatever we are going to be talking about here today is going to be just a general view of connecting what men bring into the table as a family, and financially, what they're bringing into the table financially, or for wealth building. What are we exactly talking about? And it's going to be just broad, and then everybody will pick whatever fits into their family situation. We are not going to say that this is exactly how the role's going to go, or this is exactly what a man should or have to do, but these are just things that are just general, and then we can just break it down from there. So personally, I feel like in a family setting, a man should really. I'm gonna start with the godly way. A man should bring love to the table. That's the thing that a man should bring, and love has a lot to is a bigger umbrella, and then that bigger umbrella will be broken down into so many segments. So a man should love his woman in a relationship. And even when it comes to the financial aspect of it, still love should be able to be the dominant figure. And then from that love, I will talk about emotional support. Because personally, I feel like men are not really emotional beings, but when you have love in your heart, you'll be able to understand your woman, you'll be able to be attentive to them, you'll be able to understand their feelings and be empathetical about their feelings. And then as a man, you create a safe space or a safe environment for your woman to thrive. Don't be a dictator. Be someone who's open in communication. And remember that this is another human being you're dealing with. Just because she's a female, it doesn't change the fact that you're dealing with a human being. So emotional support is number one that I will say men should bring to the table that we are generally lacking lately.
Okay.
Yeah.
I absolutely love where you're picking up the conversation from, like saying that, what men need to bring to the table and how they need to approach this whole situation from a standpoint of love. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, I just want to clarify this. Like, in my own perspective and opinion, I just believe that when we talk about the table,
Mm-hmm.
there is no table. I just feel like at this point, I believe that there is no table for anything to be brought to. A
Mm-hmm.
man is the table, a woman is the table. You
Mm-hmm.
come to a standpoint where you're bringing 100% of yourself, or you're not coming at all. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever you say what, there shouldn't be a what. It's like a who. Who is coming? You know the saying that we use in business where you say, you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. It's the same thing. You don't get out of a relationship what you want. You want this, you want that. Great, that's good. You can have all of those lists. But you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to get all of those things if you are not already those things, right? So I
Yeah.
love the fact that you say men should come to the table with love. And the fact that we suddenly imagine that a man is logical and a woman is emotional, we now put everyone in a box. You're
Yeah.
logical. You're emotional.
Not
No,
everybody is like that.
not everybody. In fact, the reality of the matter is humans are made psychologically with all of these components. There is a logical side of a woman and there's the emotional side. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when we look at how a person represents themselves, it's a function of how the things that they have had to do over time. You and I, we come from a very unique perspective where we're single moms and we're head of household. So when
Mm-hmm.
you hold that kind of position and you're running things in different fronts, you really have to take that logical standpoint a lot of times. But
Mm-hmm.
the emotional side of you is there.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out to play often because, man, it takes a lot for you to do the things that we do. So now when you come in contact with women like us, you were like, oh, she's very, she's very assertive. She's this. Yes, that's because the logical side of me actually dominates my existence on a daily basis. I
Yeah.
have to put that forward. But then it doesn't mean that the feminine emotional side of me doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a very unique man who understands these things. Like you said, coming to the table with love and empathy to know that, okay, let me bring out the more feminine side of her
Yeah.
by, taking off some of the load and doing the things that I need to do. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's kind of like where I'm looking at it from. Like, let's start the conversation from there. Let's have a clear understanding, objectively, of course, to
Yeah.
look, we are all encompassing all of these traits that we fight each other for. You
Yeah.
know, some men will say, oh, a woman cannot be a CEO, she can't be the president, she can't be the leader because she's emotional. Who says?
No, who said so? Who
Who
said so?
says? Exactly, sis. I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, when we talk about men bring love and emotion to the table, what else, can we say, like, when we look at biblically and how God set it up, the order of things, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was watching a podcast, and this was a podcast of men having a conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
this guy, I mean, there's two men from two different schools of thought. And one
Mm-hmm.
is objective in saying, look, if you are a guy who believes in the 50-50, in fact, until I moved to the United States, I did not know what that 50-50.
Role is.
I never heard. I'm African, right? In Nigeria, where I come from, is like, I don't know what 50-50 is. We
Is
just
unheard
come in.
of. It is
It,
unheard of.
it
Yeah.
was unheard of because I was
Mm-hmm.
raised in a household where My father took the leadership in taking care of the entire family. He did whatever he needed to do. If you got anything extra from your mom, that's just extra. The basic fundamental needs carried out by dad for everyone. So now I come to America, like we go to a restaurant, it's like, are you paying your way? Am I paying my way? I'm not used to that. Now, fast forward many years, I go back home and a friend of mine invites me to lunch and is like, you know, we eat lunch and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, hope you're not trying to bring out your wallet. And I'm like, well,
almost.
He said, no, you're not in America. You need to stop all this. Here, we do what men need to do. And
right.
That actually felt good.
It feels good.
It felt good to hear and see that.
Yeah.
See that men are actually still in existence who want to assume the role of being able to know that as a man, you were supposed to have the capacity to take care of this woman. And not to say that the woman is supposed to be just like helpless and be like, you do it all, you know. But the thing is, you come to the table, the proverbial table, bring your table here. Let's see what is laid out on your table. You are laying it out on your table to say, if I'm coming to you as a female in the order of things, the way God intended, I am supposed to come in and make sure that I have what it takes to care for you. Now, whatever you want to do in support of what I'm doing, it's welcome. And the reality is most women, 9 out of 10 times, having a man who's coming with all that, his full chest, he might not be a billionaire doing all of the lavish things, but at least within his capacity, he does the basic fundamentals of ensuring that you are provided for. You know, the areas that human beings need to, they need to feel safe. They need to have shelter. They need to have love. They need to have all those standard provision. A man is supposed to be able to provide that. And anything else the woman wants to bring in support, it's not going to be because you are not able to do it. And the guy was like, that is the standpoint. He doesn't care what anybody says. So if by providing and doing everything I need to do, I'm doing it in the capacity of $50,000 is what I have, and we're going to live within the means of that 50,000. And as a man, I'm going to plan and budget myself well and be a leader to say, what can we do within the confines of this revenue that I have that ensures that as my wife, as my partner, as the head of household, I'm able to care for everyone within the confines of that. And then he has a partner that understands that, okay, this is where you're at. How can I ensure that what you're bringing in and what you're offering is able to substantially care for us?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is, and then there's the other guy that says, no, I'm a 50-50 kind of guy. You got to bring 50 to the table. I got to bring 50 to the table. And I'm like,
the 50-50 analogy doesn't really work, because most of the time you'll realize that, you know, each and every party in a relationship will play 100% at some point. All of us need to play at 100%. Sometimes the other party will play at 20, you take the 80. The other party will play at 80, you take the 20. It's all about balance and getting to know how to deal with one another and figure out what we can both do to make this particular arrangement that we have decided to make possible. The 50-50 thing will never work anywhere. And if somebody starts off with a 50-50 situation, most of the time is either they are not fully trying to get into that relationship, or probably they are not financially stable enough, or not emotionally stable enough, or not a man enough, if you can start off with a 50-50 deal with somebody else. Because even you, there's a time you will not be able to do that 50%. What if somebody puts you down on that 50%? What if, let's say, for example, you lose your job? What if, let's say, for example, you get into an accident? What if something happens? Where are you going to get your 50% if that's how you came into the relationship with? So I feel like every family needs to just decide financially what works best for them. Let's say the woman makes more money than the man, because most of the time lately that's how it is. If that's the case and the woman feels comfortable to supplement more than the guy, they can do that, because money is not the reason why people get married.
Mm-mm.
Getting married is totally on a different ground. So money should not be the reason why people get married. Money should not be the reason why people get divorced, because you did
Mm-hmm.
not get married because of money, because of
Mm-hmm.
finances. Let's start
Exactly.
there. So if the money becomes an issue, then guess what? Y'all did not love each other. Y'all were
Mm-hmm.
not in this commitment for something else. If money
Exactly.
becomes an issue,
Mm-hmm.
if something else outside of your marital situation becomes an issue, then that was the relationship you guys put together was not intentionally correct. A relationship should survive whether either of the parties make more money than the other person. A relationship should be stable regardless of anything. Let people fight because of infidelity, because infidelity now affects the marriage directly. Let
Mm-hmm.
people fight because of the way you take care of the children, because that affects the marriage directly. Let people fight over small obligations in the house, because that affects the relationship that both of you guys have, but not finances. This is my thing. This is how I say it. If I get to a point where finances becomes an issue to me, I never loved you in the first place.
Yes.
That is a secondary thing. It's not the primary need for a relationship. Money is there to make life easier. Money is there to supplement what we got going on, but it's not the main reason why we are together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the 50-50 deal, people need to throw it out the table. People should just contribute depending on what they are making, depending on how they are making it, depending on how they want to structure their life. They can decide, hey, you take care of the bills, I take care of the maybe our investments. You take care of this, I take care of that. You take care of this, I take care of that. And everybody should be able to contribute, so that everybody should feel, you know, important in a relationship, and that's valuable, if that's the best word to use. But the sharing thing, nah. Mm-mm. To me, it's a no.
You know what, sis? You're absolutely right. And we're discussing this, guys. Our fams, really thank you guys for tuning in with us tonight. I know you guys could be doing something better, but just joining us in this conversation. If you have anything to chime in, definitely drop it in the comments section. We'll love to address it with you. Let's make this interactive. Drop your thought process, your mindset. What is your experience? Where you at with this whole deal? Are you a 50-50? Because the reality of the matter is, even though we're talking about
Where are
men
you at?
tonight, and a
Yeah.
lot of men we're talking about the fact that men come, but there's a lot of women who also agree with the 50-50 perspective of what we're talking about, right? Because the reality of the matter is, society has evolved so much. But here's what I'm saying. Society might have evolved, but the standards of God has not evolved. So the standard that God put for a man and a woman, the gender roles that we're supposed to play has not evolved. No matter how much advanced that we want to say we've gone farther ahead, we're no more. Some people say, oh, we're no more in the Bible days. No, we are still in the Bible days. And we are always going to be in the Bible days. It's always going to be relevant. I don't care. Like, for me, that's really the foundation of everything that we do, our
Yeah.
business, our lives. We are always going to be in the Bible days. So the right order of things, and even when you look at traditional roles, when you look at our parents, when you look at our grandparents, and how is it that they were able to sustain things and sustain themselves, it's not like we didn't have our mothers, our matriarchs of the family, and our patriarchs doing big things like we're doing it today. We're not the first to do it, by the way, right? But the reality of the matter is they found a way to understand, this is your role, this is your role. Let's get it done. And let's
Yeah.
build these families. And that's how, we want to take it from here. You mentioned something, and I want to segue into that from this conversation, right? I'm trying not to lose my train of thought. With our men, when we talk about, okay, now we've addressed the financial part. There was a school of thought that I bought into. And of course, that's from an indoctrination. When you come from the society that I come into, that I was raised in, I was raised in an African society where polygamy was a thing. It's a norm. In fact, I was raised myself personally in a polygamous home. And then, I grew up indoctrinated to thinking that men cannot be monogamous. They're not created to be monogamous, right? But now, as I continue to walk with God, and I looked at the Bible and I said, okay, I found a lot of justification in the Bible where, almost every man from Abraham to, I think it was only Isaac that didn't have the problem with, 2 wives, to Jacob.
Even Abraham didn't have 2 wives. We cannot call Hagar.
He had children
We cannot. We
from
cannot call
multiple,
her a wife. We
he
can
had
just call her
children from,
probably a concubine.
oh, well, multiple women were in the scenario for a lot of men in Bible days. So I found my justification to say, well, I guess God was okay with it, right? I found that, this was something that they're okay with. And I started to indoctrinate myself to say, I guess, well, biologically, men are not created to be monogamous and women are. And recently I started to learn, and I'm like, the Holy Spirit is like, no, everything comes from a place of discipline, right? Because imagine, even though, of course, God is able to use anybody. That's why Abraham still carried the promise and bore the promise. So for all his shortcomings, God is merciful and compassionate. However, the reality of the matter is, when you look at the outcome of their decisions, it caused chaos.
It caused chaos, yeah.
Which could have been avoided. The rivalry between Jacob and Esau, and when you look at the rivalry between Isaac and Ishmael, even let's take it back to Isaac and Ishmael. The rivalry between
even Jacob's wives. Yeah,
exactly.
he had 2 wives too.
All of that rivalry. You look at every man in the Bible who took on more than one woman, there was chaos. There was problem. So that's an indication. And the Holy Spirit said, tell me that, yeah, while God is merciful and he's not going to discard you just because you make those choices, but you have to live with the outcome of your choices, the consequences. So now I say, oh, that's true. So he now started to show me that, okay, while a lot of men will say, oh, monogamy is a difficult, it's more of a conversation of lack of discipline. And so any man that is going to say, oh, I'm not supposed to be monogamous, I'm supposed to have a wife and then have all of these things and these things. And we've all found ourselves in places where we really cannot throw stones, but we know better, so we do better. So I no longer believe that men are supposed to be polygamous, because I'm like, okay, a man can actually be monogamous because God intended for him, because he said, look at me, I am God. And I tell you how jealous I am of you. I am a jealous God. I want you all to myself. I want your desire to be on me. I want your love and your worship to be of me. So now, if I made you in my image, do you think I made you polygamous? And I was like, whoa.
That's just a human error. I feel like polygamy is a human error. Yeah. And if someone chooses to be polygamous, no problem, be polygamous, but be able to supply the needs of these people that you're putting into your life. Because this person that you're adding on to your family could have had a man of her own, and she could have been happy on her own, and she could have been doing things with somebody else on their own. But if you feel the need to add this person onto your life to be a polygamous, then you should be financially stable to take care of both responsibility with nobody, having issues on either end. And at the same time, supply emotionally, like be there emotionally, be there financially, be there, all these things. And guess what? How are you going to be there? You have to go to work. You got to do this. You got to do that. How are you going to be polygamous in this setup right now, especially? It's going to be really tough, but some people do it anyways.
Well, if you really look at the depth of, or the insight of people with those family setups, it's never a balanced equation. It's never, because it's humanly impossible for one man to hope to equally divide his emotions, his attention, his resources equally. I mean, even God set the standard that I have to be the only God. I'm not going to compete, because he knows that it's not possible for you to share your affection with another lesser God or another thing that takes his place in your life and still be fully devoted to him. He knows that. So if God is setting that standard for himself, not to say we are playing equality with him, but he is our example of how to live. So that's when the Holy Spirit said, but that's it. So I said, oh, wow. So I guess I have been looking at this thing all wrong. The examples that we see in the Bible that people will want to reference and say, there was no perfect man in the Bible. Abraham was polygamous. This was polygamous. Oh, Solomon, the wise king, had 300 wives and
700. They say it was 700. I don't know what.
They want to quickly cite all those Bible figures, right? But then the Holy Spirit said it was just out of a lack of discipline. And because of the free will nature that God has given us, He's not going to hold you with an iron fist and say, don't do that. He's going to let you make your choices. As long as you're ready and willing to live with the consequence, which of them had to. I mean, Solomon at the end of his life came back and told us that, look, be satisfied with the wife of your youth. I mean, he said it. He said, be satisfied with the wife of your youth.
Yes,
because
he did.
It's like, if I had been satisfied with the wife of my youth, the first one that her breast would have satisfied me, then maybe I wouldn't be in this mess. You know,
he got himself into a really big mess. He even had to leave God, and he had to do a whole lot of things because he married out of the cultural setup that he was brought up in. He got himself into some really big mess because of lack of discipline. And the self-will that you just said we've been given. God has given us a self-will. Is not a dictator. And sometimes that allows us to do too many things outside His will.
Yes.
But God is merciful enough to forgive us. But the Bible examples are supposed to teach us something about God and about humanity. We are not supposed to emulate the mistakes of other people just because other people did them. The Bible is just a love story that teaches us, and God is very transparent because He could have hidden those stories so that we don't have to see them. But He put them out there for us to be able to read and know that you can do this, but it has these consequences. You can do that, but it has these consequences. This person lived through this, and this is what they experienced. So when you read the Bible, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to duplicate exactly what people did there.
Exactly.
Those who are just human examples that we can learn out of. And they say there's someone who wrote a very smart quote and said, a human being who learns from other people's mistake is smarter than someone who allows themselves to go through life and learn it for themselves as an experience.
Oh my goodness. Yes, definitely. And aren't we just so human when we want to emulate those mistakes just because it suits our foolishness?
Yeah.
It's like someone who is already going down that path, their desires and their lust and their own selfishness is taking them that path. They're going to find something to justify it.
Yeah. And guess what? Look at it now. It's causing a lot of divorces. People are not happy. People are losing money. People are losing their children. It's very delicate. It's a very delicate scenario. And if we are not able to learn from other people's mistakes to make it better for ourselves, then we are still stupid and going through the same cycle over and over, going through the same classroom and not being able to perform because we are still doing the same mistakes.
You know what I said? I've been saying this. Sorry to cut you. I've been saying this. We are failing an open book test. We are all failing. Trust me. Everything we're talking about, someone's going to hear it. But then tomorrow morning, we're going to hear somebody broke out in this and that. We're all failing an open book test. And the reality of the matter is we often allow our selfishness and our humanity to rule beyond the logic of understanding what it is God is really trying to show us. So when we read the Bible and we read about Abraham, we read about all of these great men in the Bible that God used, and we see all of their errors, and we want to own that to say, let me justify my foolishness and repeat the same mistakes. That is you failing an open book freaking test that God is giving you, like, this is what I want for you. This is the example. This is the answers, and then you
choose the right thing. Choose the right thing. I'm putting it right here.
Don't be like Abraham. He was the father of faith, but look at what his decision to lay with Hagar did to his family. And don't be like all of these other people. But anyway, man, bring to the table fidelity and discipline. Okay.
Fidelity.
Fidelity and discipline. It's important, not because when you look at it, right? We talked
Yeah.
about the fact that men bring to the table
Should
love.
bring to the table love.
And then I started to tell you that, indoctrination of polygamy and how we've explained it away. Because now we've looked at it in the Bible and we found our example of faith, and we're like, but the Holy Spirit is saying, no, those examples were there for a reason.
Were there to teach us,
to teach you that
us.
don't do that. Solomon said it
Yeah.
at the end of his life. He said everything is vanity. Vanity upon vanity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, guys, we have those things. So, what else do we really want? Like, just talking about men objectively, what should men bring to the table?
Communication.
Oh,
Open communication.
that is a huge one, And I just had a live with a group of some leaders in community, some amazing men for a Father's Day special. And if you guys missed it, it's available on my YouTube channel, Dr. OJ Speaks. Go watch our Father's Day special with this wonderful men. And one of them said clearly, he said, most men will want to communicate with you, not verbally like we do. We want to talk about everything.
Yeah.
Well, we have to learn other ways that men actually communicate. And I think that's fair enough, because for the most part, most men are not chatterboxes. They really will communicate with their action. Like, for example, I learned a long time ago that a man might not tell you he loves you, but he will show you that he loves you. First of all, someone said, when a man asks you, have you eaten? He's a way for him to say, oh, I love you, baby. Have you eaten? And a woman is there sitting like, you haven't told me you love me today. But in a man's world, he said, have you eaten? He's checked on your well-being. That's his own way of checking and telling you, look, I love you.
I care.
I care about you. And then there was another thing I learned from, because I talked to a lot of men. And, there was another thing I learned from men is like, a man might not necessarily tell you certain things are bothering him, but he will communicate it with his actions, right? And another, she said, yes. And, a brother said, when a man tells you something and the way you respond to him will determine if you get to hear him speak again or he mutes you out.
Yeah.
But here's what I want to say about that, guys. Men, listen. If you're listening, for the sake of the sisters, even if that happens, come back and still don't because
let's not give them this thing of saying men don't like to talk. Men can talk. That's how they got you in the box. That's how they got to get married to you. Men can talk. So if they really want to communicate,
even if you communicate one time and your partner, your female, we can be, sometimes someone like me, I can be very expressive. Like, I can be, please don't shut down. Give it another shot. Explain to your partner that give it another shot. Don't shut down on that woman because she had a reaction that you did not find appealing, or maybe you did not find empathetic enough. Give it another try. Don't just shut down.
That's the role. That's the role they have been given, whether they like it or not. They're just gonna have to figure it out. The same way he started talking to you to lure you to marry him, he can get himself to that level again and figure out a way to communicate to you the best way to understand. Like, I'm not gonna take that men don't communicate, or men don't know how to talk, or men are not talkers, or whatever the case might be. Men can talk.
Yeah.
And whenever they feel like they're not getting to you, since you've been given a role of a leader, whenever you are a leader and you're a servant leader for that matter, because most of us confuse leadership for dictators. When you're a servant leader as a man, your job is to engage a communication to try to express yourself. If there's something that is not going a certain way that you prefer, express yourself in a manner that is respectful, because most men consider women to be lesser than, so they don't talk to them in a respectful manner. Consider your partner as your partner that you can engage with the same way you engage with your friends. Communicate to your wife the same way you engage with your friends, in a respectful manner. Be thoughtful about what they care about, and be concerned. Be concerned about how they are reacting to you. and also desire to make the communication as effective as possible. Look for a time that you guys are happy, probably take her for a dinner date. She's not going to be upset on a dinner table in front of 200 people in a restaurant and be yelling.
Okay,
that is the best.
Some women crazy though. Some of my sisters crazy though. Like y'all crazy sisters.
But guess what? You married that crazy person. You married that crazy person, meaning you like crazy. So
you chose the crazy.
You figure out a way to deal with that crazy by communicating effectively and be honest with exactly what you're trying to communicate. Like honestly, there's no excuse. Like all of us, none of us are supposed to have any excuse at this point in life.
Yeah.
We shouldn't give nobody no excuse. Everybody is grown enough to be in a relationship, grown enough to fix the relationship, grown enough to get out of it if it's too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the reason we're actually having this conversation is very simple, guys. Our podcast and, coming live to you guys every
sometimes they're just
weeks.
a silver charmer with that talk.
I know, I love that comment. It's just really because we're here to build community wealth. And honestly, there is not going to be any wealth building if our relationships are not healthy.
We have
to approach this conversation from all standpoints. So, tonight we're addressing men's issues, but trust me, we're going to be back to address the women as well. So, sisters, hold on to your weaves, and so no excuse for introvert. Yes,
no
sir.
Excuses.
Those who may not be able to communicate effectively per certain standards. Sir, you know what? There is an excuse, and that is where, even though as an introvert, like I realized that even introverted men, like there's several ways to communicate. There's verbal communication, which of course women want that, but in the absence of verbal communication, definitely there is
write a note.
There's the body language. There are the actions that can be taken to come across as you want to. Find something, do something. Okay, here's the thing, right? Society, right, has put men and women, effective is relative.
In categories. Yeah, in categories.
Society has allowed us to put ourselves in boxes, excusing some of the things, right? So some of your men compadres that I spoke to, sitting with them the past week, they said, look, the reality of the matter is men can come and say, oh, I'm not this because this, or I'm not this because that. But the reality of the matter is when you find yourself in a position that you are occupying as a father, as a partner, as a family man, as a husband, whatever, you find yourself in that position, it is up to you to rise up and build yourself to match what the requirements are.
Exactly.
So, don't have to come and say, I'm an introvert. You are in a relationship.
You are a father. Yeah,
you're a
exactly.
father, you're a friend, you're a partner, you're all those things. There is no excuse for you to say, I'm an introvert. Good.
Who even gave people those names? Who even said there's people who are introverts, extroverts? Like, we believe what we read, we believe what we learn before we even become self-aware of who we actually are. Sometimes just because you don't like to talk, you say, I'm an introvert. Who gave you that title? Who gave you that? Did God create introverts and extroverts? God created everybody. Because sometimes we check humanly psychology and humanly science, and we like right now, like most people nowadays, they like to describe themselves by what they think their month of birth is. Like, what's your star, what's your what? All these things we need to remember. At the end of the day, this is not us. It's just a choice to either decide to go by that or not go by. Yes, I understand that all these signs and all these characters can match, but we are not those things. You are a human being, you are an individual. Even those signs never really match 100% of who that person is. We are individual humans. Just because you don't talk doesn't automatically put you in a box of introvert. For me, I can say I'm an introvert and I'm an extrovert at the same time, because sometimes I don't want to talk. Sometimes I want to talk the whole day. Sometimes I want to be just by myself. I'm a loner. Sometimes I want to have a lot of friends. I'm a social being. What do I describe myself? Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? I cannot describe myself to be neither of them, because I'm both.
let me ask a question of our audience. And of course, I hear what this guy is definitely saying, and I understand it. But let me ask a question.
But my own
We're
definition
talking
will
about we're
effectively be
talking about
different.
relationships, but when it comes to parenting,
Mm-hmm.
introvert father, are you going to be introverted in how you raise your kids, or are you not going to instruct them, even with your introvert nature? Are you not going to instruct them with your introvert nature? So why not apply that same principle of you have to communicate with your kids, whether you're introvert or extroverted. You have to communicate with them to raise them, to counsel them, to support them, to teach them, whatever it is, right? You're not going to be saying I'm introverted and you see your kids walking into a ditch and you say I'm introverted. Let them fly into that ditch. But when it comes to the relationship, you say, oh, I'm introverted. I don't have to communicate. Well, communication is a criteria. And what I've learned, of course, even from men, they've confirmed this, that, men make a lot of excuses and women do too. So let me just be clear, guys. Women, we're coming for you next week. So
we are coming next after 2 weeks.
So let's talk about our men today. Men, honestly, communication it's so important. And I know that a lot of men will say verbal communication is not their thing. They are introverted, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you're with someone, that's where the compromise comes in. If women make those compromises, then men bring the compromise to the table and meet
as well
halfway with this communication thing, because I know that's one of the things that breaks down in a relationship where women feel like their husbands or their partners or their men or whatever, their boyfriends, they're not communicating enough.
They shut down, and once they shut down, the next move is to look for that which they desire their woman to do somewhere else. And once that happens, then they start getting into other things and other things and other things. So communicate. If your woman can change, they'll change. If they don't want to change, I guess now you already said I communicated. And guess what? Communication doesn't mean you do it today only and then you stop. Communication is a process, because change is not something somebody can change as an event. Change is also a process. Nobody can change what they are used to do in just a second. You tell them today and tomorrow they have changed. It takes time. Be patient with the person when it comes to the process of change.
Exactly. And one of the things I find with change is this, and that's why it's important for us to have these open and honest conversations, right? Because when you get with a partner who is a certain way, the reality of the matter is you are choosing, and this is for the females, right? For the men who are coming to the table, we're saying you're coming to the table as yourself. And for me, in this age, in this season, when I meet someone, I'm easily able to discern if I want to further date this person, explore something further that would lead into a lasting relationship and marriage and all that, because I'm able to easily discern, okay, this person is who they are. After a few conversations, I am able to quickly sort through all of the basic things that I know that they need to have for me. And I'm also able to identify those things that I know that there is no. So while someone will say, oh, maybe explore it a little further and see if he changes, I'm sorry, no. I'm not in the season of changing no man. I'm not assistant Jesus, and I am not assistant God. If God has made that man that way and he has grown to us, especially in our age range, I'm sorry, that's who you are. That means you are who you are for somebody else, but not for me. And I'm not going to try to explore trying to change you. I'm just going to wait it out and try to meet someone who is best suited for me. So that's another thing, right? Understanding that for those of us who want change, I think it's such an unrealistic expectation to put that kind of pressure on a man. So when a man brings himself to the table or brings his table
to you,
and inspects that table very well. Is it square? Can it fit? Is it round? Can it fit? With this? And it's not when the man has come and he has and one thing I learned with men is, men usually honestly lay their cards on the table. It's just that we women, although I know we're not talking about women today, but it feels like we can't really address the men's issue without really sort of
bringing the women inside.
Bringing the women into it. So I feel like men coming to the table authentically and just a bit more authentically, just showing all their hands and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing for a woman to know.
and at the same time, And at the same time, I feel like since we have never been taught about marriage, we have never really had these conversations in our lives. Most of us get into relationships without asking the right questions. We don't ask the right questions. We don't look for the right things. We are just thinking that relationship and marriage is all about love. We don't look at other aspects of this other person and see if it's something you can deal with. And there's nobody that comes into a relationship 100%. We are not all 100%. Is the fact that you can take the 60% that this person has and know that you can work with the 60%, and then the 40% you can compromise.
Most definitely.
Most definitely, because nobody is 100%. And everybody should know that nobody's 100%. You're just gonna have to see what you can deal with, and then you approve of what you want to deal with. I was seeing a question here. I see the guy, what is his name? It's not a question really, it's kind of like a suggestion. He was talking about you cannot instruct an adult, you can only instruct a child. When you're addressing an adult, you're not instructing an adult. That's the different mindset we have. We have different mindset, and the mindset that we have, especially our own men, they think that a woman is someone who's beneath you, that you need to instruct. A woman is not beneath you. A woman is not on your level. A woman is just another individual, another human being by her own. So you don't instruct a human being, you just communicate. And communication does not mean you dictate what you want. You try to understand where this person is coming from, and then you plug in how you feel. And then if this person sees your ways to be better than their ways, then they can meet you somewhere. That does not mean you are instructing the person. Instructing someone is not the right word to use per se, from me, my perspective, especially when it comes to the marriage. A woman is not beneath you, so you cannot instruct her. You can just communicate.
See, I think what he was trying to say was when I brought up the analogy of when men talk about their introverts, but then when it comes to raising their kids, are they still going to use the introvert excuse to not communicate with their kids? So he was trying to cite the fact that, well, with kids, there's a certain level of instruction you give them to a certain point in their lives, which we all agree on, right?
Yeah, we all agree on that.
The bottom line is, whether you're instructing a child that is a child that you get to instruct to a certain age, and eventually they cross over from instruction to counsel, where you now take the position of being a counsel in their lives, where you offer your suggestion, you offer your perspective, and they either choose to take it or not. That's really what it is. But bottom line is, in all of those scenarios, in all of those seasons, I still maintain the fact that whether you are introvert or extroverted, you still get to communicate. Communication is the means by which you pass across, whether it is your instruction and you pass across your counsel, your advice, your suggestion, whatever it is you're trying to give them as a parent. So using communication, intimate or partner relationships, but yet also using it when it comes to other scenarios. You cannot eat your cake and have it. So men, we want you to come to the table when it comes to this family relationship thing. Let's make communication a priority, and let's figure out a way to communicate in a way that our partners can receive it. Women are very verbal. Yes, we talk a lot, and I can say that for my sisters. Sometimes you got to just hush and listen, right, sis? We'll talk about that next time. It's not your week this week. Why am I harassing my sisters? It's not yet their turn. But we have to be able to, men have to be able to meet us halfway when it comes to bringing your table to us, so that way we know that how are we doing. There's no way for us to measure and for us to know what's going on with you without communication. Anyway, let's offer one more thing before we round up this live. I'm so glad that you guys are so interactive with us, because we know that this topic is something that...
This topic is hard. Yeah, it affects all of us.
It brings everyone out. So, and I love the fact that we're able to have these conversations as a community, to understanding that the quality of our relationships also just washes into the quality of how much wealth is circulated in our community. Families are broken apart because things like this are not spoken about. A lot of men and a lot of women and their tables are so messy. Everyone is coming to the table with so much mess. Some people have their tables so guarded that you can't even make space to accommodate what your partner is bringing to the table and things like that. But I said, for me at least, just as a closing out tonight, I'll say this. Both men and women, should really set ourselves up as the table. So when you present yourself to the partner, let's try to change
What
the
if I
narrative.
have no table?
Let's try to
Everybody
change
has
the
a table.
narrative. I know. Let's change this narrative of what do you bring to the table. Honestly, I
mean,
feel it's undermining of the human that, God created us as high valued humans.
valued.
When we talk about high net worth these days, about money and stuff like that, but really, one thing I'm learning, Nancy, is every human being is created as a high net worth individual. Now, that value is only harnessed over time with the right mindset, with the right exposure, with the right relationships. You can harness the value of a person and bring it up to whatever standard you want it to be. So when we say, what do you bring to the table, ladies, let's stay away from all these narratives of his bank account.
That's just a common names that people use for society. Let's say societal description of marriage. That's what they're saying.
And I think it's done relationship a disservice, because now we have men on social media.
Now we have tables.
It's like a man is saying, what you bring to the table?
What do you bring to the table?
I'm like,
woman,
let's this guy said, Mr. Anselm said, what if I have no table? Dude, well, if you have no table, actually, you know what? I think we should just smash those tables, because
nobody has a table. Nobody has a table. Nobody has a table. We can only eat on God's table. All of us are just bringing value to one another.
Exactly.
And the best question you can ask yourself, personally, whenever I get into any relationship, be it a woman, be it a man, the first question I ask myself, what do I have? What type of value am I going to bring into this relationship? Because ultimately, anytime you present yourself and add value to the other party in a relationship, that person will not be able to dispense you. You are irreplaceable. Any minute you ask yourself, what value do I bring to this person? And then you look within you and see which tools, which assets are required for this particular relationship, and you offer that. I think we will all grow to be very effective people if only what I think about is you and what value can I bring to you. And then you look at me and you see probably there's something Nancy needs, and then you look at something that you can offer Nancy. So if we look at each other as people who are trying to do good for the other party and add value to the other party, we will be irreplaceable. There's no way or Dr. OJ can replace me if there's nobody who can sit on this other side of the table with her and have this conversation. Exactly. She cannot replace me. The same way we should do that in any part of a relationship, be it godly, be it feminine, be it with a man. Always the first question you ask yourself is, what value can I add to this relationship?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nancy. One of our guests was talking about the fact that then you have nothing to bring to a relationship. I'm trying to understand, is that a question or is that
I think she's responding to the person who said, if I have no table.
If I have no table. Well, he's choosing to smash the table, but trust me, the thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is God made us to complement one another. There is no competition. Yes, okay, good. There is no competition in this life. There is the right order of things for a man to be a man in any relationship. And there is the right order of things for a woman to be a woman. A friend of mine talked about it. His name is Teju. He's a very, very well-acclaimed talk show person. And he said the reality of the matter is he had to learn, being a father and a husband, that who he was as a son and how he was raised, he had to really develop himself to dying to who he used to be, now to bringing up certain parts of him that was required for him to fill that role successfully. And I think a lot of us, whether it be a man or a woman, and like I said, the next episode we're going to address the issues of women when it comes to this topic, is a lot of us are not willing to die to who we were, coming to this thing with who we need to be. And that is why the question of what do you bring to the table, nobody is ever going to ask that question if everybody actually showed up as who they are created to be. That means men understanding their manly roles, understanding that for you to now reach across the aisle to say, I want to pull this woman. And I'm not, see, you are that woman who's going after the men and laying it out for them and saying, okay, here I am. Come on. Look, this conversation is not for you. Keep it moving. Just click off. But if you are that woman who understands that a man finds you, and you are that man who understands that you get to find what God has for you or what you desire in the opposite sex, then this conversation is for you. Because before a man has to reach across the aisle to say, I want to go and pick this female, to bring her into my world and invite her, there is a position that you are offering. This is what I can do and offer now. And you have to be able to fill those roles. And of course, bringing a woman in is for you to create an environment whereby she can actually successfully meet her feminine roles. So as long as we're no longer switching roles, because society has turned us upside down, now we're having these table conversations. Please, let's smash all those tables. Let's just be humane towards one another. Find compatibility where we find it. Find friendship where we're able to find it. And keep it simple, stupid, right? Yeah. But then we have to keep the basic things. The right order of things is the right order of things. I don't care what anybody says. Traditional roles of men, according to God's law, has to be maintained. And traditional roles, according to God's law for women, has to be maintained. Now, when we begin to switch those up, that's when we're having these problems of what do you bring? What do you bring? Because like they say, if you have to ask a man, what are we? Who are we? What are we doing? Then sis, you ain't nothing. You ain't doing shit.
You are in a wrong relationship.
I'm sorry, you're not even in anything. You don't matter. And then
and fundamentally, I'm sorry to cut you off. Fundamentally, whenever like the relationship will be the reason why most people either succeed in life or they don't. When two people come together, success is very easy. When you are by yourself, it's a little bit harder. And as Dr. OJ said, the reason why we are talking about relationship is because ultimately relationships affect our financial building. It affects how we will build money moving forward. And it's also going to affect how we save, because if we are not together and we don't know how to deal with each other, then we are not going to be able to function and build. In short, so we have to start somewhere for us to be able to know that if we fix this particular area of our lives, then it's going to be easier for us to be able to build financial wealth, because ultimately that's why we are here. That's why we are having this conversation. But we are starting it from the fundamentals first, and then we keep on upgrading and advancing. There's no way we can talk about money if people are not even together to make this money. Yeah, and we had almost 10 topics when it comes to what men bring to a relationship. If people are saying they don't know what the table is, what are you bringing into the relationship? In short, nowadays people call it, what are you bringing to the table? That's what people are referring to, the table. Even in a contractual relationship, even if it's business, people always ask each other, what are you bringing to the table? It doesn't necessarily mean the table. It actually means that particular relationship. Yeah. Who are you? What role are you gonna play here? What are you bringing on here? Are you bringing money, or are you bringing your skills, or are you gonna bring whatever you're bringing? So someone was saying they don't understand what the table is. I just wanted to say that.
Yes,
in
thank
response
you.
to it.
I saw a very cute quote somewhere that a guy said, "Look, if you use money as a bait to start a relationship, you will pay for life." That is just the basic truth. You will pay for life. It's just the same way you use beauty and aesthetics,
you have to keep up with that. You have to keep up.
Eventually, those things go away. They are not sustainable. Then the thing that you use is what you're going to have to use to sustain it. But if you as a human and use just humanity to say, oh, this person is a good friend to me. Oh, this person have conversations. Oh, this person seems like a good person. Like that. And your preferences are, because we all have our preferences. You know what your preferences are, and you find those attributes and the compatibility in the other person. Let's build from there. Every other thing that comes along in the fringe benefits, the money, the lifestyle,
let it be a secondary.
yeah, they're fringe benefits, right? And I think the older people get, the more they begin to realize that this is the reality. You know, we see all these our Gen Z buddies on social media, and they talk about, if you're going to talk to me, you're going to have to pay me, please. At the end of the day, right, you're going to wake up one day and realize that, okay, if you're asking the guy to pay you because of the way you look, then when you stop looking that way, what happens? You're going to give him back all his money that he paid you?
Maybe no, maybe maybe payment will stop.
Then payment will stop. Then what else is going to sustain that? So we're just having this conversation to shift the narrative, to begin to bring the conversation to a center point where we actually go back to the right order of things, which for me, Nancy, I don't know about you because I can't speak for you, even though I know I can. But for me, it's about, what does God say about these things, right? What is the fundamental principles that God is saying about how we need to come together? So thank you guys for joining us. It's been an amazing time with you on another episode of Building Community Wealth with Nancy Kem and Dr. OJ Speaks. So Nancy, any closing remarks as we let our people go?
My closing remark is this. We had 10 topics. We just got a chance to speak about only 2, actually 3, because we spoke about financial stability. We spoke about emotional connection. And then we spoke about communication. So we spoke about those 3 topics. And I don't know if you want us to do a part 2 to finish up, or we go to the women and then we come back here.
You know what, sis? I think we should do a part 2 because our audience deserve to get everything we have for them. They deserve the tea. They deserve it. That's why we're here to serve our community. So if there's something we have prepared for them, we need to serve it hot, hot, hot. So we will be back with part 2. And of course, you know, girls, you're going to get it. But let's just finish up with our men so that way we serve all of this amazing content that we've prepared to help our community grow and thrive together. So we'll see you again on the next episode of Building Community Wealth. Make sure you go follow our pages, support this, and help us to grow. And if you have any thoughts on the subject, comment in the DMs or comment in the section below. And let's continue the conversation in the comment section. How about that? Let's continue conversations in the comment section. All right, until next time, guys, have a good night. We love you. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone. Thank you.